All right. Hello. Last one. So no pressure at all. It's like I really hate AI chatbots. But this isn't just like a random hatred. So quick intro. Hi, my name's Heewon. It's pronounced like the opposite of she lost is what I've been telling everybody. And ever since I was little, I've had a noticeable stutter. And I think that really kind of led my interest towards a more visual direction because of my problems with verbal communication. And so my visual interests are kind of varied over the years. I was really into art. I was really into UX design. I've spent the past 6 years as a UX designer and front developer. And I think all this, looking back, all kind of came down to the fact that I had a lot of trouble communicating through text, through kind of verbal means. And recently, I also picked up a gig as a Sunday school teacher at my local church. Here are the kids. And I actually wanted to highlight this one kid right here who had a really poignant thought.
고요와도 막 뛰어가서 그리고 먼길 막 뛰어가서 배 타라고 뛰어가서.
All right. So the video was in Korean. So for those of you who don't speak it, this is the full text of what he said. It basically says that like the current paradigms of how we chat with AI is like very, very outdated, right? And so I won't make you read this whole thing. He quotes like a Harvard professor. It's like a whole thing. Very smart kid. He taught me everything I know. But the point is 80 to 90% of how humans understand information is visual, right? And sorry. And yet all the innovation, all the investment, all the kind of the attention around like modern AI models are all focused on this last 10 to 20% where it's all LLMs, it's all text-based. And so this entire space of how humans understand information is kind of just being left for grabs. And intuitively, you all know this, right? If you try to explain things to kids just using words, just using text on slides, it's very difficult. But as soon as they kind of come across something that has more visuals, more actions, they become very kind of they're much more receptive to it, right? So this is the same guy that's almost falling asleep while I'm talking to him, and yet as soon as he goes out into the playground, he starts pretending to be a tiger. He's like very kind of like actionable. And so the whole "I hate chatbot" sentiment isn't really coming from nowhere. There's a lot of sentiment in the AI industry these days about kind of the need for a new interface. I think the most notable one is Andre Karpathy here, who basically says that the current paradigm of how we talk to LLMs kind of reminds him of like the 80s computer terminals. And so if you have ever used an 80s if you've ever used an 80s computer terminal, you'll know that these are basically what computers looked like all the way back in the day. You know, everything was a text command. But then now we have all these apps with, you know, GUIs, browsers, apps, stuff like that. And so how did we get from this to this? And the answer is pretty simple. We just had crazy groups of researchers and builders, places like Apple, Xerox PARC, that kind of came together over a generation and really kind of honed in on this problem to make the text paradigm of computers more visual. And so that's what I want to do with SketchDreamer, which is an interactive canvas UI for AI. And so the underlying engine is built, and we're kind of starting to get like the first beta users and the first demos built out. So here's a quick demo. So these things on the right here are intent, basically what you want to do. And based on what you want to do, it tries to predict the type of UI that you would want, right? So sticky notes, word processors, research notes, stuff like that. And so you can kind of see how it's taking text input and translating it into a more visual medium. Just a few more examples. I told it to make a World Cup spreadsheet, and so it'll take a minute here. It's thinking a little bit. And it basically makes a spreadsheet on a kind of an open-ended canvas rather than just a text response. One last one. I told it to make a calculator, and it actually coded this up from scratch. So this is just HTML. By the way, this entire app was hand-coded. That. And it actually ended up working. It didn't work on the last demo day, so it's a slight improvement from last week. Cool. So right now, all this really comes down to I really want to make interfaces that work for kids, work for pretty much like the more visual side of our brains that take up 80 to 90%, and just make this little guy happy, and by extension, make my younger self happy too. So if you're interested, here's a wait list. My email is she lost, and thank you.